welcome back. It's Autodesk 3D Studio Max 2018 YouTube Classroom. Today is video number 5. We are going to build a snowman. Did you miss me? I know you did, because today is day 2 of quarter 1, week 1. And we are going to introduce you guys to primitive creation and manipulation. So, the goal of today is to build a snowman. Now, last time we left off with this thing. So let's go ahead and hit Q to get our selection tool out. Now, you'll notice the more you hit Q, the more it changes. So there's a bunch of different ways to set it up. The first and default is the box. And if you can actually hold this button, hold left click down and choose. So let's just start with the box. The box is the standard selection box, so you can get one thing or you can get two things. Now actually there's this other thing called window crossing. If I select window crossing and make sure it's highlighted, that means I can't select anything unless I get the entire object inside of it. So I can select this box and not get the cone, or I can try and get the cone, and even though I crossed the box, I didn't actually get it because it didn't totally envelop the box. If I wanted to get them both, I had to make sure I go all the way out. I don't use that very often, but it's important to understand when that happens. It's kind of weird. Now I'm going to use the Q hotkey again. You can see it down here. And that changed it to the circular selection. Once again, it's just like the box. Same thing. Okay? So hit Q again, and I get this angular selection tool, where you can get back to the beginning and it selects things. So if I wanted to do I don't know, something like this and make sure I didn't get the cone, I could do that. I don't use that one very often. Actually, I use that extremely rarely. But this lasso is pretty great. We'll use this a lot with skinning. Generally, I use the square, but that lasso is pretty great. And finally, we have the paint gun, or paint can, where just basically anything you run over, you will grab. And we'll mess with that a little bit later. But for now, I just want to hit Q and get back to my square, and I'm going to select both of these objects. But before I delete them, I'm going to hit Alt and hold Alt and hit W. What does that do again? That's right, it changes back to the quad view so we can see what's going on here. Now I'm going to hit W, just W, and select both objects. If I have both objects selected, they move together. If I select just one, it moves by itself. Now you'll notice I'm selecting both the Z and the X-axis. If I do that, it moves along this plane, up and down, left to right, but not in and out. If I wanted to move it in and out and right and left, I would grab the green and red arrows. So you can feel free to go ahead and give that a shot. At the end of the day, all of this is just fluff anyway. We're going to get rid of our Minecraft unicorn head here now. Now, today I'm going to build, I'm going to Alt W back into my perspective view. I'm going to build a snowman. Now, you don't have to build a snowman. You can build whatever you want. You can build, you know, a bunch of planets with rings or whatever you're feeling. The goal here is that you understand how some of these different options work. So a snowman is built of spheres. So instead of a box, I'm actually going to select a sphere. We can create, the creation method is how the actual sphere is created. So if I click in the middle here, actually I'm going to hit S for snap so that I know I'm snapping to the center of my grid. I'm going to click and drag and I get a sphere. And you can see how big the sphere is how far it's snapping out. So in this case, I've got this sphere, and it actually tells you it's got a radius of 67.082 centimeters, and it's got 32 segments. Now, segments are hard to see on a sphere because we know that there's 32, but does that mean there's 32 spaces or 32 faces? So let's find out. If you hit 7 on the number line, you'll notice we get our statistics, and we talked about our statistics earlier today. So we actually find out that this is 960 triangles, 1,440 edges, and 482 vertices. But it's hard to tell that with the default shading system. So I'm going to go up here, click on this, and actually give it, I'm I'm going to make sure it has edge faces on. So right now it's not selected. So click this, and now you'll be able to see the actual faces and edges that make up this object. So now from here we can actually adjust the segments. We can make it 64, and now where we had one line, we've now split it in half. So now we've got 3,968 edges. We can continue doing this. I put in 128 segments, and now we have 16,000. Let's do 512. Now we have 39,600 triangles. That's pretty crazy. Look at that. That's a lot of triangles. Now, because it's just one sphere, it's not too bad. And realistically, if the edge faces weren't on, I'm going to turn them off, but you don't have to. Can you tell the difference between 39,600 and can you tell the difference between 39,000 and 3,900? I would argue that you cannot. The further away you are, the less faces you need. So currently I have 64 segments. I want to put it down to 16. Now you can see a difference. But if I'm back here, I don't know if you can actually see the difference. Let's put it back up to 64 segments. 64 segments looks about the same from back here as 16. 16, 64. So, pretty interesting, huh? Now, if you deselected off of your object, you're like, wait a second, all of my information disappeared. Well, that's because it's actually over here under the Modify tab. So we have 16 segments. If I set this to 64, you can tell up close that there's a significant difference. From further away, though, I might even be able to get away with like 8 and barely be able to tell the difference. Up close, of course, it looks really rough. But we're talking a difference of 48 sides and 64, 3,968 sides. So keep that in mind. The segment count is really important. Also, notice that I'm using binary numbers. Binary numbers are really important because it allows you to make sure that you've got easy places to create halves of things. So if I select this and I look at it from the top, so I hit T for top, and I change this to 32, you'll notice I've got a good line that I can cut down the center, and I can cut this whole thing into quads. We can actually do that in here. I can actually select it this way, or actually I should probably do from the front so you can see it better. You can actually set it so it's at 50%, which would give me a hemisphere. And now we've got a logical place to cut. So if I did that with a different number, like from the top, 32, actually let's just start with 8. From 8, I've got 2 sides for each quarter. If I do 9, I don't have a logical place where I can cut along an edge. If I do 10, I have a logical place to cut along one direction but not the other. If I do 12, well, then I'm back in business. I can cut it in quarters again, although I can't cut it in eighths. This may not seem important. I'm going to go back to the perspective view. This may not seem important. I'm going to turn off that hemisphere. If I right click, anytime you want, you can right click on a spinner, it turns it into 0. At the end of the day, we want to keep our numbers generally binary. So use 8, 4, 16, 32, 64. Those numbers generally cut easier, and later on when we're making more complicated things, you want to be able to make little bits of it and work from there. Okay, so from the front, I hit F for front. I'm going to hit W so I can start moving this. Now I'm actually going to grab this. I'm going to hit S to turn snapping off. I'm going to grab this and set it so that it's going to sit right in the plane at 0, 0, 0. Now, you'll notice when you look at your grid, you've got dark lines, one dark line here, one dark line there. At the center point of both of these dark lines is 0, 0, 0. That means it's 0 direction on the y-axis, 0 on the x-axis, and 0 on the z-axis. Now, I don't actually want to set my object's center point there, because I could do that by clicking 0, 0, 0. And now it's perfectly in the center of that x. If I hit P, you can see it's in the center of that grid as well. But that's not great for my snowman because he's sitting too deep in the ground. So I'm going to lift him up a little bit. And I don't have to line him right up with this edge or anything. Just set him somewhere in there. And it doesn't matter how big this is right now. So we'll just keep going from there. Now, if you haven't done so, make sure that your axis constraints are turned on. Right click in the snaps toggle, make sure they're turned on. So now hold shift and then left click and drag on the Z axis and drag up. What you're doing is creating a copy. I'm going to create a copy that's kind of stuck deeper than you would think it should be. And then I'm going to let go of the left mouse button. And it says, I'm cloning something. How do I want to make it a clone? I want a copy, I want an instance, or a reference. Well, a copy is just a pure brand new object that's called that looks exactly like the other one. It doesn't actually reciprocate any data or anything like that. So we're just going to leave it on copy and click OK. Now I'm going to hit R and I'm going to resize the sphere from the center. I got to be careful though. If I resize it from one of these edges, I can get a weird looking snowman. I'm going to undo that. If I do it like this, that's also a weird looking snowman. I want to make sure I resize it from the center so it's properly sized. I'm going to hit W and make sure he's got like the snowman bounce. Now I'm going to hold shift and drag this up again, make another copy, click OK, leave it the way it is, hit R again, shrink it from the center, and then hit W and move it up so I've got a head. I'm going to hit P for perspective. I'm going to look around. That looks pretty good. You can adjust it or make it a little off center if you want. Move it along the x-axis so he's maybe grab two of them and move them like that. So maybe from the front view, he's kind of moving to the wrong direction, I guess. From the top view, it looks like he's looking to our right. From the front, hit F from the front, it looks like he's moving to the right a little bit. It doesn't really matter. I could take them all and hit E and then rotate them all by 90 degrees. Notice that you can see the number right here. If I hit A, it will snap by 5 degrees, which is really helpful because I want to move him perfectly 90 degrees. So I'm going to hit A again to turn snapping off. So now if I look at it from the left, he's leaning forward a little bit. I can also rotate his head a little bit and rotate his body a little bit just for giggles. Alright, so cool. So now he or she or it is sort of looking forward. Now I'm going to use spheres for the eyes too. So I'm going to hit L. Actually, I'm going to hit F for front. Now, because I'm in the front view, if I create a new sphere in the Create tab, which is over here, I'm going to create a sphere. And really, you could create it with whatever you want. If I create it, whatever direction I create it in will be the direction that the rings are set. So notice that the rings are set now like this. This is beneficial because that's a lot closer to an eyeball than if I create it from the top view. If I create it from the top view, from the front, there's no like the size of it. Like if I wanted to make it have like a pupil or something, it'd be a lot easier to make this into a pupil than this. And we'll talk more about that later. So I'm going to select that one that I made from the top and delete it. Select this one, hit W, move it along the Y and X axis, and hit L for left. Move it along the X axis, and then zoom in a little bit, hit R, resize it from the center of that square, from the front view, and then hold W. Actually hit E. I'm going to rotate it a little bit so the eyes sort of coming out a direction. Now you'll notice I turned it, but then the axes did not go with it. There's reference coordinate systems, which are up here. Currently, you generally want to work on view, world, or local. I'm going to turn it to local so that I keep my axes is always pointed towards the outside of the sphere. If that gets a little complicated, don't worry about it too much. It's not something to really fret about right now. But once you set it, it stays that way until you move it back. So I'm going to change this back to view. I'm going to hit W, and then I'm going to hold shift and then drag this over like that. Okay. Now I'm going to click OK. Now he's already kind of looking the wrong way, so I'm going to have to rotate that around like that, and that's pretty close. If I really want to make sure, I could hit W, look at him from the front, and then see where his positional location is. So I'm moving him on X. He ended up at 14,847. I can copy that, take this V, and make this negative 14,847. Top view, and that didn't turn out so great. Alright, great, but I've got a purple snowman. That's no good. The way we're going to get around coloring for today is I'm going to hit Q so I can select him, and I'm going to select all the snow pieces at the same time. And over here under name and color, which is under the create geometry settings, I'm just going to select that and find a white, like a bluish white, maybe even like that, and click OK. Now this purple, yours is probably a whole different color because it randomly selects colors. I want to make this black. If you don't have a black, yeah, you should. It's there. You could go with like a dark blue, or hell, you can make it whatever you want. It's totally up to you. So we've got that. The next thing we're going to do, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cone, an orange cone. So from the front view, I'm going to grab a cone. I'm going to select it and drag. Press forward, click once, pull down, and click again. So now I've got a cone. This cone has a whole bunch of extra vertices that I'm not actually going to use. You'll notice it's got rings going through here that we aren't actually using. I can remove them. See, I've cut them down to zero, just one, and it doesn't actually change the shape. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm also going to change the color of it while I'm here, right here. And then change it to orange because, you know, it's a carrot. If I hit T for top, I hit W so I can move things around, grab it along the X and Y box, and drag it over roughly where his nose is. And once again, he's a snowman, so don't worry too much if it's not quite aligned. And we're going to, from the left view, I'm going to hit E, rotate it down a little bit just because I feel like it, and I'm going to put it forward a little more. This is totally up to you. The next thing, we need to make a top hat. So the top hat I'm going to make from the top view. That way when I create my cylinder, which is the third thing on from the top, make it roughly the right size. I'm clicking and dragging out, letting go, pressing up some more, and clicking again. So if you drag around, you can see what it looks like. Hit W to move it. Hit left view to figure out where it needs to go. I'm going to rotate it using E. From the front view, I'm going to hit W. I got to front view by pressing F. Cool. So now that's actually pretty good, but I really wish I would have done something earlier. I should have made the flat top part of his hat first. There's not a whole lot I can do about that now, but what I can do is take this part of the hat, go into the Modify tab, and change the height segments to get rid of all those we don't need. And I can change 18, which is a terrible number, down to 16. So there's my hat. It sure would be nice, though, if it had the brim on it first. So I'm going to hit Z, 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 Z. Oh, there we go. So from the left view, it's now flat again. I'm going to actually make it wider. Right click on the height segments to make it 0, and then I'm going to lower the height so it's just the flat part. Now I can move it back, left view, E, rotate, so it's going to sit on his head just how I want it. Cool. Now I can hit left view again, hold shift, and we're going to make a copy just like we did before. I'm just going to make it so it sticks into the old version. Cylinder 2, cool. And I'm going to adjust things here. So I'm going to adjust the radius from there, and I'm going to adjust the height from here. You make it as big as you want. There we go. Cool. So that's our snowman. If I hit P, we're good to go. And this is where we're going to stop today. That's it. Easy peasy. That's the first half of your snowman. Now, come on back for video number 6, and we will finish the next section. I'll see you next time.